Hey guys, so today we are going to talk about differences, and not just any differences. We are going to talk about differences in code and in software projects. So let's get into it. Now, this is an important one because I hope it will give you a little bit of foresight if you are a junior developer as to basically what I would like to believe, or what I consider to have been a mistake on my part when I first started out. So just let me walk you through it, right? So, in school, I was taught by very skilled tutors. I'm just going to say it. They were really good at what they were really good teachers, and they had a lot of knowledge. We were taught test-driven development. Now, you may have heard about this before, and you will also probably know that it is by far one of, if not the most popular concept to talk about in programming when it comes to quality of software and so forth. It is actually to the point, and this is very much so, it was the same kind of thing that happened for me with my teachers. They promoted it in such a way that we believed this to be a natural way of working, just as obvious and as sure as using a for loop or a construct of the language itself. It was a standard practice, if you will. And we had other considerations that we were taught, like the domain-driven model or domain-driven design, and all these concepts that we were basically just told that this was the way that software development worked. And then I went out into the workforce, and at my first project, I was put into this very small sized company, a design firm, and I started working there. And it was then I realized that, all these things I've been taught in school, I see them, the concepts are here, but they don't map at all to the things that we were taught. I mean, this company is doing, they don't really have a domain model. They don't have any flow charts, like UMLs. They don't have any meaningful tests. They have some, but they don't follow any practices. The concepts were there, but nothing seemed to be as it was as the same sort of thing that I was taught by my teachers. So I tried to adjust to this as much as I could, and I started working at my next company, bringing the learnings that I had from my first company with me. And at my next company, I saw, okay, they do test-driven development, but they do a lot of other stuff as well. Their domain doesn't really map over to the concept that I was taught in school either. What's going on here? And this is when I started to realize, after talking to several of my coworkers, that everything is different, guys. Every single project is different. The concept and the definition of what, say, test-driven development, how you do it, integration test is a favorite of mine. My teachers would tell me that it's a really bad idea to do integration testing towards the database. In other words, running your integration test against the database is a big no-no, because over time that's going to give you a really big performance hit. And that is true. And I find myself today working in a company where this was not so obvious, where they did it towards the database instead of doing it in memory and not using any type of mocking. And so in 3 different companies, or 4 technically, and after speaking with tons of other people, I can only tell you something that I want you to take away from all of this, and that is that everybody does it differently. The things that you are taught in school are just the concepts, but the actual thing that you will do in real life will be different for every company. Test-driven development. The strategies for doing test-driven development. I've seen everything from people rigorously saying it's going to be 100% test coverage, we're going to cover all the cases, to having people who say, yeah, we do some testing, to having people who do absolutely no testing. It depends on the company. And this is why, because I have quite a few people who talk to me about things like they're in school and so forth, and they wonder like how, is it important to memorize all the different algorithms and all that good stuff, and to like how relevant is the schoolwork and so forth. And I kind of have to, I come back to the same answer. The reason why it's important for you to know about the concepts is not because, rather it's more important for you to know about the concepts and all the ranges of ways that people commonly use, say, test-driven development or domain-driven design or databases, like whatever you want to call it. The reason why you want to know about all the different variations is not because you have to be a master of each one, because you don't know which one you are going to face at your place of work. That's the thing. You don't know which one is going to be the thing that you are going to work with. That's something you have to learn on site, in other words, when you start working. But you have to kind of be familiar with the ranges. You have to know what's out there, because it becomes so tricky if you only know one way of doing something, which was the case for me. I had only been taught one single way of thinking about development, which meant that when I came into an environment where they didn't do it in that way, it was very confusing for me, because it was tricky for me to adapt, because I didn't know. Because you have this other rule which says that if you find bad quote-unquote software, you should refactor it. The Boy Scout rule, right? You should improve it. And so for me, instead of trying to adapt to the working environment, I tried to change everything, which turned out to be a horrible idea, because you can't, because this is an ideology, guys. They have there's different definitions for, and different, basically, there are different definitions of what something means, and people use these ideologies and these tools in different ways. There are pros and cons with each situation. Everything is a trade-off. I mean, the cost of having 100% test coverage is massive, which is perfect, but it brings a lot of stability depending on how you look at it, and better, in theory, it's going to give you better software, which it might be perfect for, say, NASA or somewhere where the quality of the code is extremely valuable, or it is extremely important. But it's an absolutely horrible idea for a small startup or somewhere where they simply don't have the type of money that is required in order to do that sort of development. And if you then come in with the mindset that you're going to do 100% test-driven development or something of that nature into that environment, you're probably going to make the same mistake that I made, which is to think, they're doing this wrong. This is wrong, because I've been taught that this is not the way that you should do it. And it's only now that I realized that my teachers who were preaching this sort of working they preached it because their background was in higher level enterprise development, where this sort of working structure is very, very common, but it's not so common at smaller scale. That's the thing that I missed. I thought that the first thing that I was taught was the only truth. That's the way I was going to do it. And unless I could do it that way, I should refactor, I should change things. And that's why you need to know about the different variations. That's why it's so important for you to understand that everybody does it differently, and try to figure out what the different variations are. Think of it as learning a language. When you're learning a language, you don't have you don't have a wide skill set. You don't know all that many words. And some people will argue that you don't have to learn all the different variations, because some words are the same for expressing the same thing. And it is true that you may use the same word to express the same thing over and over and over. And you may say, why would I learn all the other ways you could say this exact thing when I already know one way of expressing that? Because somebody else might be using those words to talk to you. The reason why you have to know all the variations of expressing something in a language is because although you may not use that when you speak, if you don't know it, you can't understand what the other person is saying to you, because you have no idea of which way they want to express the thing that you're talking about. It's the same thing here, guys. You don't have to know everything about software development or every technique out there, but you should have a working understanding of the different ways people commonly use things out in the real world, because you may face a situation where the thing you've been taught is not the thing that you're using at your place of work. Have a great day.